Opposite and conflicting experiences with composers.
Well, nothing has really gone smoothly of all of my experiences, but a few were particularly annoying.
There's an issue with composers in the sense that they feel that, vulgarly, that their shit doesn't stink.
My brother is a composer, my dad is a composer, and my boyfriend is sort of a composer, so I get along with them.
I mean, I do like composers as people, and I've had good experiences for the most part.
Maybe it goes with the profession. It would kind of make sense, but basically the feeling I get from most student composers is that they think they're the biggest shit ever. They think that their shit doesn't smell and that it radiates with musical glory or something like that.
They just expect you to do it. And they don't care how impossible it is or that your instrument doesn't do that. They just want you to make it happen magically.
Well, I think in general, composers have a tendency, well, when they're writing the piece, they have a tendency to ask, is this possible? And they don't ask, does this fit well on the instrument, or does this fit well under your hand, or is this possible in conjunction with this? Because what they end up often doing is taking a bunch of semi-possible things and linking them together, making something that actually is impossible.
Here at this university, like all other universities, put this idea in young composers' heads that what they do, whatever they write, a musician has an obligation to play. What they forget to tell these young, budding composers is that there's a practicality to it.
I constantly argue with composers. Anytime a composer wants me to play something, I know it's going to be awful because I'm going to fight with them, because they're going to say, well, this is what I want, and I'm going to say, I can't physically play this on my instrument. Change it. And they get mad, and they tell me that, yes, you can, and I'm like, well, then you do it. And they're like, well, I don't know how to play the bass. And I'm like, exactly my point.
You think that you know everything. You think that this reading session with a quartet is written perfectly, and of course you didn't write a note that didn't exist, or put two different techniques to happen at the same time that is physically impossible, or you want us to, like, punch our instruments to make a sound. That was in a score once. Punch the back side of your instrument. Like, what the fuck is that about? I mean, you want me to destroy my instrument for your stupid, like, recital? I don't even know.
What happens with young composers is that they feel that what they're doing is right, and what they're doing is any musician will be able to play. That's not true. And it's not true because no one teaches them what the fuck a musician can play and what they can't play. Just because a book says something doesn't mean that they can play it.
And when people expect you to play something that's pretty much impossible, at the right tempo, in the right order, I think it's kind of unfair to performers because it makes us all feel like we can't play our instruments anymore when we've been spending, our whole lives learning how to play our instruments.
There's a certain point at which, for a performer, if I'm going to have to spend forever in the practice room figuring out how to execute this technique, or the one that I run into all the time is something that's dangerous to my instrument, and that's a huge problem for student players, of course, because I can't afford to go out and buy a carbon fiber instrument for this performance.
The last new music ensemble concert I played, I ended up with 6 bloody knuckles and 2 torn up fingers. And the musicians, me and several other people, were like, this is impossible, we cannot physically do all these things at one time. and him telling us, yes you can, do it like this works like this. And we're just like, no.
So, one time I can remember I was playing a string quartet by one of my peers. And I think it was for a composition recital. Anyway, we were rehearsing it, and we had one other rehearsal before the actual composer was there and helped us out and all this stuff. And we realized that the tempo marking he put for the complexity of rhythms, which were extraordinary, is just ridiculous. We practiced, actually. We didn't blow it off, and we still had so much trouble fitting it together, because we had good ears, but it did not make sense. how hard we tried. So he showed up at the next time we got together, and he was very displeased with the fact that we were playing it at 106 or 104 when he wanted it at 115 or something like that. He wanted just a bit faster, but it was really pushing it. So I remember we were sitting in the rehearsal and we had the metronome going, and he was just holding it for whatever reason. And he didn't believe us when we said, we can't do it as an ensemble, we can't go that fast. So, trying to sneak it, he just kept putting the metronome up one more click, like every couple of seconds, so that at the end, if we could play it, he could prove that he was so right, that actually it is possible, but everything fell apart and we knew exactly what he was doing. Because he didn't have the sensibility to realize that he was actually creating a very obvious accelerando in what we were playing. So I was put off by that. And truth be told, and I was a little bit more immature back in these days, after that performance, which was very grueling, me and one of the members of the quartet may or may not have had a bonfire with all of the scores and parts, because we were happy that it was over.
I really hate tuning my instrument off of the standard tuning because it just takes so long for it to resettle. Especially, I will not tune my strings up at all, because then it stretches the strings out and then they never really quite settle back in tune. There was one piece we were playing a new music ensemble that wanted me to tune my C string up and down in the middle of the piece, and then somehow manage to get back to a C to play on other notes. And I just wouldn't do that because it's not going to happen. You know, you're not going to get back to the C. So I just glissed. I just cheated.
Student composers will have lines with abbreviations next to them, and I have no idea what they mean. I have to ask them.
I think that aesthetics have changed drastically from, 150 plus years ago to now. Of course, as they should be, because that was 150 years ago. Of course, aesthetics have changed.
But it's a neat change, playing on new music concerts, playing for people who are receptive to very different music. And there's also so much more variety on a new music concert, I feel like, than if granted you can play music that's hundreds of years apart, but if I only play music, art music from the 1850s in Vienna, it's mostly going to sound pretty similar. There's so many types of music being made in the United States right now within art music. That's a really neat thing for me, being able to sit down and play a bunch of works written in Illinois in the last 10 years and have them all sound completely different. That's a cool thing for me.
Musicians need composers, and composers need musicians.
I find part of the fun is the challenge. When you have something that's a little bit hard and a little bit weird, it can be kind of fun. And I've always liked challenges, so to me that's kind of most of the fun. I like hearing new music, so I like playing it. And I think it is important to be relevant and to be modern. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's important that people at least know what's going on. I mean, no, not everybody needs to play in every new music ensemble, but knowing what's out there can at least, I mean, make you understand things like Shostakovich even better. I mean, some people hear Shostakovich and they go, ooh, crazy Shostakovich. But once you hear, you know, stuff written yesterday, maybe Shostakovich doesn't sound so crazy.
Part of the reason I love playing new music is because I'm able to hear from the composer about their feelings about the piece. So if I understand their feelings about the piece, I feel like I can get under the skin of it a little bit more, and that's really helpful. I mean, so many times we're performing a Beethoven quartet and we say, what does he mean by this? And can't actually ask a living composer. So I mean, I love playing new work. I love working with living composers, at least in theory. It doesn't always work out as nicely as...
I remember suggesting it to a lot of younger violists, whoever, that they should try and play in a new music ensemble or play somebody's quartet or something, because there's so many little teeny, like, pedantic little things in music that you have to pay attention to in new music, like common time here, and then immediately, like, 554, like, meter and stuff that doesn't make sense, that you have to turn on this little part of your brain just to understand it, that I think makes you a better musician in terms of reading notation.
I mean, not to sound ridiculous, but I'm good at it. I have a natural God-given gift to do something, and I'm taking advantage of that.
I think it's really important to make friends with performers and get feedback before you're in a performance situation. And I'm sure you guys have certain, like, seminars and things on. Do you not? Oh, jeez.
It's a good idea, again, to get kind of a broad perspective. So if I try to write something for the clarinet, I mean, I don't know anything about the clarinet. So I would have to sit down with probably multiple clarinetists and make sure that they know that, like, I know what they can do and what's easy for them. And then if you have something that's easy for them, then you can use that a lot. You can really use that as much as you want. And then if there's something that's hard but possible, I just wouldn't cram everything that's hard into one piece. I mean, it's always expected that there's going to be one or two things that are hard. But I wouldn't bog the performer down with that, because then it gets really stressful.
Yeah, I would say in general, make sure you're workshopping your pieces with musicians who play the instrument you're writing for, making sure that everything is possible, especially if you're unsure. Be very sure that it's possible for the instrument you're writing for and for the kinds of players you're writing it for. That's a huge thing, I feel like, working up to performances of student pieces.